Hello and welcome to the very first episode of STEELS Talk, the official Stocksbridge Park Steels podcast. I'm your host Adam Allcroft and thank you very much for listening. So what is this podcast going to be? Well, every fortnight I'll be talking to a notable figure from Stocksbridge history, whether that be a current player, a club legend or even a volunteer. There are so many brilliant people who have contributed to this club and we hope to give them the spotlight using this podcast. But for this episode, there was only one option for the first ever guest. Graham Furness has been the chairman of Stocksbridge Park Steels for 6 years now, and he has also been served in several different roles. But he also has an incredible history in grassroots football and is a brilliant sweeper, though that doesn't mean he's Franz Beckenbauer. Unfortunately, we did have some audio issues, and also my attempts at keeping a rogue budgie quiet didn't quite work, but I hope that doesn't distract from all the brilliant stories Graham told me. Well, the ones we can broadcast anyway. Enjoy. So welcome, Graham, to the very first episode of STEELS Talk.
Brilliant. Yeah, welcome, man. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about a lot of your different roles that you've had at Stocksbridge, but the most important question about your most important role, what's the ideal broom for sweeping up?
Oh, you need an extendable broom, Adam, and then you can adjust it if you're doing the steps. It's essential.
No, but in all seriousness, you've had about 50,000 roles at Stocksbridge, but we'll just talk about this season just for a few moments. How do you think it's been going so far?
Yeah, it's been a great start, Adam. You know, obviously we had all the turnover, didn't we, during the summer, and nobody knew how that was going to work out. And credit to the management, they put a good squad together again, a squad that's together amongst themselves, work for each other, which is what Ian does.
So, just at the time of recording, we've had a bit of turnover again. Alex Hardwick, João Silva, Jack Haslam, all gone in the last week. Is this when you're not that concerned?
You know, I mean, there was not a lot we could do about two of them, to be fair. We knew Jack was going to go. Obviously, he's emigrated with his family to Australia, and we wish him well in that. I did suggest he might get divorced or wait till the end of the season, but he weren't having it. But yeah, I mean, you know, credit to the lad. He came in this summer and he had an effect straight away. But yeah, they've gone over to Australia, and good luck to him. I mean, João, his parent club have fetched him back. They wanted him back a month since, but that wasn't to be. The FA stepped in on that one. But he's gone back. There was nothing we could do to stop that. And in fairness to Alex, he's had an offer that he cannot turn down. I know. Earlier this season, he's turned offers down from other clubs to stay with it because, you know, he enjoyed what he was doing at our club. But there comes a time for young lads with it, they just can't turn it down. You know, it's a great offer for him. So good luck to him. It's a step up. It's not as though he's moved sideways or backwards. It's a step up, and hopefully he'll grasp it and move up. Keep going. Good luck to him. It's frustrating for me.
Does it make your life feel a lot easier and a bit more relaxed when you know Ian's rebuilt this side a few times already and that he's probably going to be able to do it again?
I know he'll be looking in the right areas to bring the right people in and not do it for the sake of doing it. Obviously at this stage of the season it's harder than it is in the summer, but I'm sure he'll get round to doing it. Obviously goal scorers are harder to find or bring in than some of the other positions in the team. But I have every confidence that he'll do it. And obviously, not only that, the lads that are still there, you know, it's up to them now to step up and come in and do the job. Your Dan Hernandez, you know, your Jack Morris, your Olivers, your Tommy Marshalls, they've got to step up to it. They're young enough, they're good enough, they're proving this season that they're good enough, so they'll get their chance. Oliver Novak, getting great reviews about Oliver Novak on loan at Rossington. You know, it might be a chance for him to come back and get involved. You know, I've got his finger on that. He knows what the script is, so I'm not too worried about that.
Well, before we make Ian's head bit too big...
Yeah, I don't want to bull him up. I might have to pay him more.
I want to talk about something, because something anyone who knows you at the ground will know is that you seem to know absolutely everyone.
I think it's a case of, you know, I'm of an age. I've been around a long time, so I've met a lot of people, Adam.
But when you've been aging, it seems like you have done a lot in that age.
Been playing senior football for 50 years. So, you know, your paths cross with players and referees and managers, and I'm even getting lads now that are coming, well, lads that played for me when they were 15, and out there with their 15 and 18-year-old sons, you know. So you think, bloody hell, I must be getting old.
And that's something I want to talk to you a bit about today, is that Sheffield grassroots scene over the last 50 years, you know, the Sunday League, when it was all the pub teams and, you know, some of all these youth teams, because you have done everything from coming through as a player to coaching and then being here as the chairman of Stocksbridge.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing senior football when I was 15. Got my name on the back of the green and I scored 2 goals in the Sports and Athletic League when I was 15. First game I played Sundays. I was a secretary for one of the local pub teams when I was 16 for the Sunday sides. So yeah, I've been about a bit.
So what era was this in? Was this in the 70s?
This would be 70s, yeah. So to 74, 5.
So what was it? Because for me, this is a completely alien thing compared to what I've seen now. What was it like playing in those teams in the 70s on the, you know, the field for, you know, a pub team or just a local grassroots team?
It was tough. You know, you had to grow up. There weren't many junior teams, so you're up against proper footballers, especially Sundays, because you got some good players on a Sunday who, you know, were playing semi-pro on a Saturday. So it was a tough level. The pitches weren't bad because, you know, a lot of the time you were playing on works pitches or decent pitches. All right, there were the odd, you know, once you were playing in parks and whatever, there were some poor pitches. We've had, you know, getting changed in Concourt Park in a wooden nut when you first start, that was interesting. You couldn't shut the door because it was too dark. You couldn't have it on because the snow was blowing in at certain times. Because in those days, obviously, you didn't get games called off. They went on and they saw if there's a flake of snow or there's a bit of ice, you played it. And you put rubber studs on and you played. I remember one game we were playing and I was playing centre half that day and I looked round and left back weren't there. I thought, where's he gone? And when I looked, he was stood at the back of a tree shivering his doodles off. It was that cold, he'd gone off. He was only a thin bloke and he was feeling it. He'd just buggered off at the back of a tree because it was snowing horizontal. So yeah, you played and it was tough. And you learned, but you learned quickly. As I got a little bit older, I played with some good players and you pick some good habits up from these players. But you had to learn or get kicked to death.
So, which teams were it that you were playing for?
Played local, High Green Villa. I played for a couple of... But when I first started, I used to play for school in the morning and I played for my brother-in-law's team in the afternoon. I was at Sheffield Wednesday when I was younger, but that's a different story. I was never going to be dedicated enough or confident enough to make it at that level. And I just wanted to play, Adam. I'd have played for anybody. I used to train with everybody every night, whoever it was. I remember one day I played one Saturday for my brother-in-law's side. I think it was against Sheffield Brick. And then the week after we hadn't got a game. But one of the lads that played on a Sunday, he just said to me, he says, we're struggling for a team next Saturday. Can you help us out? I said, yeah, I'll play. And ironically, it was against Sheffield Brick. And we'd been playing about 20 minutes, and then this defender looked at me and went, I marked you last week. Last week, can't I? Can you? I says, who did you play? He says, oh, somebody from my green. No, I says, oh, my brother plays with them. I said, it'd probably be him. Bearing in mind, I got a brother. But yeah, you just turned out. You wanted to play. I didn't take it that serious, if I'm honest. So I just played. I wanted to play. I played at an higher level at Sundays later on. I realised, you know, that it was time to move up. But we had such a good social side of it when I was playing with the lads that I was playing with. So they were older than me. Some of them were older than me, 5, 6, 7 years older than me. I was just coming through. And funnily enough, I was out with some of them last Saturday. You know, they're in the 70s now, but I still see them. But with a great social side. So, you know, that was it for me, enjoying it. Play, have a drink, enjoy it.
Do you think that was the important thing back then, was that social side? Because obviously pubs were much more important to life back then, it seems, from everything I've heard anyway. I'm not old enough to know it. And do you think, because obviously you don't have the internet or anything like that, that was the important part? Yeah,
and even professionally. At that era, they played and they had a drink. And they had a drink in the afternoon after training. And that was a bit of the culture. I'm not saying it was a massive drinking culture, but the social side was all part of it. But also we've got to remember, when we played on a Sunday morning especially, the pubs closed at 3 o'clock. So when you got back, you had a drink and then everybody went home. And then you might have gone back out again at night. Same on a Saturday. You'd all meet back in the pub later on at night. You know, there was one pub in High Green where we always headed back to. You know, wherever you'd been, you'd go back in there for the last drink, you know, and it was good. Like I said, we had a great camaraderie with it all. and still staying in touch now, as I said, 30, 40, 50 years on. And that was, it's a big part of it. You've got to enjoy it. I just think sometimes with the age that some of these youngsters are starting at, by the time they get to 16, 17, they've lost all that enjoyment. It's been too much pressure for them. And they just, if they're not going to make it, if they're not getting a pro club or they're not playing at a level, they just stop playing because they've had it run down their throats since they were 7, 8, 9-year-old.
Because one of the things that's a bit of an underwritten story is that grassroots football for men has been slowly dying off. Sunday leagues are getting less teams, and it's all been disguised because of the brilliant uptake of women, but men's football has lessened in popularity on the Sunday game. And do you think that's part of it?
It's a conversation. I'm on the FA Council, Sheffield FA Council, and it's a conversation I've had there saying that it's great that they're promoting ladies football and women's football, great. But they're taking the eye off the ball as regards adult 11-a-side football at weekends. It's all right, they're playing on a Wednesday and they're playing on a Tuesday and they chuck £2 in and there's all these different 7-a-side leagues. They're losing adult football. They've lost a lot of it because, as I said, there were a lot of works teams, there were a lot of pubs teams. There aren't that many pubs now for teams to run out of. There aren't a lot of the works in Sheffield have closed down, You've only to look, when I first started playing, you couldn't get a pitch. You were struggling to find a pitch. And in Concourt Park, there weren't a pitch spare on a Saturday. Ecclesfield Park, always, full. If you rode out the High Green towards Concourt, there were no pitches. And now there's plenty of spare pitches. But there's no pubs, there's no way to fund it. I mean, grassroots football, the cost of running a grassroots football club now is astronomical. By the time you're done with officials and kit and insurance, cost of pitches, it's very difficult. If you haven't got a base, it's very difficult.
We just had the story in the summer was that Herringthorpe playing fields in Rotherham, which is famous for Sunday league football. I don't think there's any teams on it this year. I think that was the story from the advertising.
I don't doubt it. I remember when, because I used to play in the Barnsley League as well, for High Green Villa, and that was a massive league. Massive, loads of divisions. Saturday and Sunday. 8, 9, 10 divisions. As was the Rotherham League on a Sunday. And the Barnsley League, when Barnsley got promoted under Danny Wilson to the Premiership, Barnsley Saturday League folded, finished. As I say, when I first started playing, you got a Bible Class League, you got Sports and Athletic League, you got South Yorkshire Amateur League, which I played in, Yorkshire League, Atchard League, and on a Saturday now I think you've got Doncaster Senior, Central Midlands, County Senior. I think that's your lot on a Saturday. Oh, you've got the Fair Play League now, which is started up on a Saturday morning, which is popular because a lot of the lads like to play in that because they can be done and dusted by 12:30, 1:15, and then go and do whatever they want. So yeah, there's thousands of teams disappeared, and some with big names, some good sides. I mean, again, in the early 70s, the Black Bull side that played, it used to be called the Anglo-Scandia League. It moved to the Meadow League when Meadow League was a really good league. A lot of semi-pro players in, but Black Bull at Ecclesfield had a fantastic side. I used to follow them because they used to have a coach every week. My dad used to drive it, and I used to follow them from being a young lad. There'd been 2,000 down at Thorncliffe to watch their games. But a lot of them played for Boston. It was the old envelope in a shoe payment job. They all got paid on a Sunday. There was one side in that division that their manager, I think he had a double glazing firm, so all their players had double glazing when it was a new thing. So, they were all getting backhanders, but it was a great standard. And then you look now, the Meadow Leagues and under-18s league.
So we've talked about, grassroots football for men at the moment has been reduced a lot. What do you think would be able to fix it and try and start changing those numbers going back up again?
Ooh, that's a hell of a question. I don't know. I think they've got to make it more accessible. I think a lot of the problems now is by the time they've got to 19, 20, 18, some of them are fed up with playing football. They've not made it with the pro clubs, so they get disillusioned with it. And again, one of the biggest things now, them as well, when we were playing, there were no shops open on a Sunday. Pubs opened at 12, 11, 12, shut at 2, 3, and then opened up again now. There's so many distractions over weekend that they can be doing other things. Young lads can earn money over weekend, Saturday, Sunday working. Takes some change, to try and change those habits, takes some doing. And especially since COVID. I mean, I think there's been a big drop in young lads wanting to play since COVID. They got out of the habit. So some of that age group, from 4 years since, they lost to the game. You've got to try and adjust it now so that the ones coming through towards 16 want to carry on. We tried it when I was on the County Senior League to try and encourage some of these Sunday sides to come and play Saturdays. but they're not in that mindset. They're in the mindset of playing Sundays. We've got all the distractions now, Saturdays. And especially if Wednesday United are doing well, they want to go and watch that. Or they can watch it on the television, whatever means, home and away. So it's difficult. I mean, you know with our attendances, when Wednesday are there, it's difficult to get them to come and watch, never mind play. We're fortunate in that we've got a good pathway where our lads can come from 18 to reserves, to development, to reserves, to first team, if they're good enough. So they've got that development and that mindset, because although they're playing on a Sunday, a lot of them are playing Saturdays as well with the reserves or development. A lot of clubs haven't got that. So it's very difficult to try and alter that mindset. As regards anybody starting teams up now, it is a minefield for them, with different stuff and legislation. People have got to get the coaching badges and the welfare and the DBSs, and then they've got to find a base. And I mean, you're looking. We always told new clubs if they wanted to come, or clubs that were coming to the county scene, you're looking at least $5-6 grand a year now to run a team. To try and generate that money is difficult.
Yeah. So we've moved on to Stocksbridge Park STEELS now, so we'll talk about that because you've done it. You've detailed it really well already. What was every role that you've done at Stocksbridge now?
Well, originally when I was under 18s manager, Mick approached me. I turned it down at first. I was never I'm being very confident, and turned it down. And then only rang me up. He said, "Look, I need to come and do it." He said, "I want you to do it with somebody else." I said, "Well, who's that going to be?" It was a bloke called Mark Potts, who'd been involved at Cross Pool, and we worked together, and it was absolutely brilliant. Potsy was absolutely fantastic. He'd get players from anywhere. He'd go and sit in the grandmother's house or their house or whatever and get them to come and get them to sign, and then we'd make them into a team. I mean, first year we were there, to be honest, we inherited one or two things that weren't quite right with different things, players, some second year lads that we'd got. And at Christmas, I'll be honest, I would have gone back to, because at that time I'd taken my under 15 side, I'd taken them into the Meadow League with the Packers at High Green, and they had a season there with them. And I would have gone back because that year at the Packhorse, going back to social side, I know I'm digressing a bit, Adam, but going back to the social side in there, absolutely fantastic. Group of lads there that accepted my young lads, and they all joked together and everybody just bounced off one another. Again, social side. I've always been a big thing with social side. I think it's a big thing, again, a bit like Ian does, you create that team spirit, that bond. I went to the Packhorse for a year. I went up to Stocksbridge. That first half of the season weren't good. Having said that, we got through to the final of the cup. We were about fifth in the league, but it weren't a set of lads that I liked, I were used to working with. But I said to Potsy, we made our mind up. We said, listen, next year we're doing it our way, and if it's not right, we'll bugger off, and if it is, we'll see where they go. And we brought some lads in. We had a fantastic season. We won the league. Only let 10 goals in. And there were lads coming through that you could see could progress. And then the year after, we enhanced it again, Potsy again, going and bringing lads in that you knew you could that you could improve the things with. And that second year, we won everything. We won league, the cup, first round proper FA Youth Cup. We had Richard Ashton, John Wordsworth, who eventually got into the first team and played quite a few games. We lost John to Ossett, because again, even in them days, it was some friend of his granddad that promised him the earth, I think, and we lost John to Ossett. Richard Ashton stayed on to play about 60 games. Ironically, it was Bert that released him, and Bert took over, but Richard was a good lad. And then we had two other lads come through, your Richard Adams, John Beggs eventually came through front reserves. Matt Ragg played some games in the first team. So yeah, there were some good lads there. But I came in as 18s. I had 3 years at that, and then reserve manager left, and I moved up to the reserves. And that's when Beggsy and then came in my second year. I think Beggsy came in. With Beggsy and the Rack twins. The reserves prior to me taking over have been relegated, and we finished 4th in Division 1 the first season I was there. Because I got quite a young side, mixed in with some older ones. And we did all right, but we finished 4th. And then the second year we brought some younger ones in, who we thought could progress to the first team, And again, we finished 4th. We finished with more points than we did the year before, which would have got us promoted, but we finished 4th. But we left the nucleus of a good squad, and Shutty come in then, and eventually he got them promoted, and they had good success in that. I think one season they won league. I don't think they won the league. They got promoted. They won the Purdy Cup and the Association Cup, I think. But as I said, then Beggs and people like that came through. Richard Adams. came through into the first team. But then when my second season with the reserves finished, the first team at the time were in the bottom 4-5 with 7 games to go. And Mick Owen left, which left Wayne Biggins. And Wayne asked me to come in and help him because it was the end of the season. We managed to win 5 out of the 7 and stay up. And then Wayne rang me and said he wanted me to stay on with him with the first team the year after. My first question to him was, am I a cheap option? Because I knew what Bethel was like. I thought, am I going to be a cheap option? Did Wayne really want me? Or did he want to bring somebody in? But credit to him, he said no, he wanted me to work with him, so that was good. So then I moved up to the first team as assistant. But in those days, like, I was assistant, physio, Bert was manager, player, and there were just the 2 of us really to do the first team. So it was a lot of work, a lot of pressure. And we did all right, to be fair. We never got the strength in depth. We were always okay for the first half of the season, and then when injuries and suspensions, etc., kicked in, that's when we started to not struggle, but results didn't go as well as what they had been doing at first half.
Were you there for the famous 17-1 game then?
Yes, yeah. Me and Bert were managing that day, yeah, when we played Oldham Town. Yeah, yeah, that was good. They were trying to play. I think they call it an eye line now. They were playing an eye line for about 90 minutes, and we just kept Paul Jackson. It was same pass, same ball every time, and he scored 10. I think if we'd have scored another one, we'd have broke the record, didn't we? I think we equalled it, didn't we?
I think equal to 5. Paul Jackson definitely equalled the record for most goals scored in a game.
I think we equalled one at the highest score or something. With some good times, with some good runs in cups. That first year, I think that was the first year when we won 17-1, and we did all right in the cups. Like I say, it was a strength in depth. I remember one day we played Workington at home, and Workington were managed by Tommy Cassidy, who used to play for Newcastle United, and he used to fly 3 lads over from Ireland for their games. And we played them and we lost, and Bethel were going berserk, that weren't good enough, blah, blah, blah. I says, Alan, they've got 3 lads flown in from Ireland. I says, I've fetched 2 lads from Saudi Green. I says, that's the bloody difference. We are where we are. We played them away, we beat them away. So we did have some good results. And then I think in the second year when played in the FA Cup, we were 1 game away from getting through to the first round proper. But we lost to Children. But I wasn't there that day. My father passed away, unfortunately, early that morning, so I couldn't go to that game. But we lost at Children, so we didn't get into that. We didn't get to the first round proper. But again, with some good players.
I think it was after when Wayne Biggins left. Did you go back into the reserves?
No, I left before Wayne left, actually, because my father passed away. And then we worked commitments and one thing and another. My mother weren't in the best of health, and I just couldn't commit. Whereas my dad used to help me and stand in for me a bit at work and whatever. It was just impossible to try and do it. And I thought, well, Wayne will bring somebody in. I mean, it's so many connections in football. It was unbelievable. I thought I'll bring somebody in to work with him. But he did it in-house. He brought Kev Ronan helped him. Before the end of that season, Wayne packed up as well, and that's when Pete Rinkovich came in then.
So when did you return?
Well, I left them for a while. I said to Alan, I said, there's things happening at work. I said, I'll have a break. I've been in football. Well, I started when I was 15, so I was 40, 43, 44 then. So I said, I'll have a break. I'll miss it. Anyway, Alan being Alan went, come and help me with my under-15s. So I said, I'll come and do some coaching at training, but I said, I'm not coming Sundays. I said, Sundays is a bad day for me with work. I think I missed 1 game on a Sunday. And we did all right. We finished 3rd, I think, in that division. And then Alan stepped back then. When they got to 16, Alan decided to step back and leave it to me and one of the parents. Nick Malinder was ex-pro, he used to play for Rotherham. I knew Nick from school, he was a bit older than me at school. We did it together. But I was struggling at the time. I was waiting to go in for a back operation, so I was really struggling to do training and get to games. But we did it at under-16s. There were some decent lads, but it weren't ideal. And it weren't ideal with me not being fully fit. So I did it till the end of that season, and then I actually left them for about 18 months. I went to watch rugby, if I'm honest. I got into rugby union. I watched Rotherham Titans and Tigers up at Dover. And then I went to watch the reserves for one night, one summer. I'd gone to watch a game, I don't know why. And Shutty was there, and obviously Shutty worked with Ian Swaller, who was an ex-pro cricketer, still, played cricket at a good level on a Saturday, so he was missing through the summer. So Shutty just said, will you come and help me do pre-season? I said, yeah, no problem. Did that, and then when Swall came back, he said, well, why don't we all do it together? So does it really need 3? But we did, and it worked. We didn't all say things at the same time. Shutty used to come, Shutty was a good character when he managed him. You knew at half-time, at some point, something were going to get thrown or kicked about, and the balloon would go we never knew when. And me and Swallow just sit and look at one another. But Shutt would come in and he'd have his say, and then he'd say, have you got anything to add, G, or have you got anything to add, Swell? So I'd look at Swell and shake my head, and he'd say something, or vice versa. We never, don't need three of you, because we're all singing off same hymn sheet anyway, to be fair, if in case anybody had forgot something or whatever. And it worked well, again, with some good success. We won the League Cup, Association Cup. We were getting lads through, that was a big thing. We were getting lads, our bit of a connection between the 18s and the reserves, so anybody that was doing well at 18s come to train with us, then they got in the reserve side, and then hopefully moved up. As I say, Shutter, we used to have bets as to when he was going to lose it, because we were going to throw something. I know we beat Kirkburton in the Association Cup. We played it at Park Gate, and we were 3-0 up at half time. Danny Joins absolutely destroyed him up from Ethan Joins' brother. And we were sat around, and Shutty had a writing pad and he was going through things. And Michael Finney, who played for us, big mate Andy Rings, nudged Cole Payne. But Cole was a bit of a character. He used to have his face on his shin pads, Cole, for some reason. I used to tell him, I said, people will never tire of kicking you, Cole, without putting your name, face on your shin pads. But yeah, and Finney nudged him and got him talking. Finney then sat back. And then Shutty saw him, and he absolutely just threw this bloody book at him and gave him a right kick. There was one day we were playing up at Dover, and we'd come in at half time up at HSBC ground. And something had gone wrong, and one of the lads had ducked out of an header, and he was absolutely, again, straight at him. And he's kicking this bag of footballs, they were in the middle of changing rooms, and he kicked him, and they kept coming back at him, and he kept kicking them, and they kept coming back at him, and I didn't look at Swell because I was so. He eventually managed to, he just picked him up and threw him across bloody changing rooms, these balls. But as we got younger then, because we had a spell then where we lost some of the players who weren't quite there for the first team, but they were good enough to go play North East counties. And Steve Adams, who were the under-18s manager, left to go and manage Park Gate. So he took some of those lads to Park Gate. So Shutty made the decision, really. We got at that time, Dave Rhodes was running a good under-16s, 18s team. He says, right, we'll play them. He says, if we go down, we'll come back. They said they should be good enough if we get mixed right. So we put them in. But he knew as we got younger, he couldn't hand out the lambasting that he used to do because they were younger lads. So he adapted in a fashion. I remember one day, because one particular season, and he hadn't lost his temper at all, and I kept saying to Swell, I said, he's going to lose it at some point. I said, so me and Andy Dawson were playing for us at the time, he was the captain. And we were sort of having bets as to what game it would be, and we lost to Fetchville away, who were playing at Davies up Prince of Wales Road at the time. And changing rooms were only very small. I just said to Swallow, so I'm taking everything back to the car, because I says, today's the day. I said, if it's going to get thrown about, today's the day. So I'm putting it in the back of my car, get out of the way. And I walked back into it towards changing rooms, and Shutty's got his hands on his knee in the corridor. I said, you all right? He said, just leave me. So I went in, and he come in, and he was really calm. He was calm, said, listen, I'm not going to debate it now, we'll talk about it on Tuesday at training. Blah, 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 and walked out. And I thought, bloody hell. And when I got up at Barca, I didn't expect that. He said, if I'd have walked straight in there, I'd have ripped the door off. But he says, I managed to calm myself before I got in. But he knew, because they were young lads, you didn't want to destroy them.
So how do you go from doing all this coaching to becoming the chairman?
Well, I've always set myself targets as regards, I wanted my coaching badges by the time I was 25, which I got. I wanted to be coaching by the time I was 35 at some level. But like I said, I wanted, by the time I was 40, I wanted to be doing it at a decent level, whatever that might leave me. When we got rid of the business, I got more involved, because I've always been interested in admin side. I've always done secretary's job. I was secretary for the reserves when I was working with the reserves. I was on the county senior league committee. I then went on the county FA council. So I've always been interested in that side. So I went on our committee at Stocksbridge. Alan asked me to get on and learn things. And first thing I did, that's when I started sweeping up. I said, who's responsible for... We were playing Sheffield Wednesday pre-season, I always remember what it was, and there was all sorts of rubbish outside the ground and weeds and whatever. And I said, what about tidying up? Like, Council do that. I said, well, they don't, do they? I said, there's weeds all over. Ah, it's not. I said, no. I said, if people are coming to Stocksbridge, they'll not come and stand in a queue at turnstile and think Council haven't done that. They'll think Stocksbridge is it, Park Steel. So I set myself off doing outside the ground. But I went on the committee doing that and other tasks. So my remit on that, which I set on myself, was keeping the outside of the ground and the inside the paths, etc. Alan and another chap used to do the changing rooms, and then Alan Bethel and Alan Fields then used to do the changing rooms, and then Alan Bethel backed up with it. Obviously we're getting older. So me and Alan Fields then did the change room. So then we're doing inside and outside. So that's where we are with that. And then as Alan was getting older, and he used to say to me, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. So he used to involve me with different meetings and take me to, wherever we were going, take me to different things to help him. And it just built from there. And then ended up being vice chair. I've never asked for any of these jobs, by the way. They've always asked me to take them on. I've never put myself forward. But I ended up as vice chairman then. And then Alan, I was met with Jack Newton's funeral, and he was still talking to my wife, exactly. And then he was saying, he said, I'm not as sharp as I were, but I'm not ready for stepping down. And he pointed at me and he went, he's not ready for stepping up. So I don't want to step up. So I'm all right doing what I'm doing. I said, I've always told you I'll coach until I'm 60. And I said, and I'm not 60 yet. I left it at that. And then a couple of months later, he came into a meeting and plunked all his stuff on the desk and went, I've finished. What do you mean? So I've done. I said, well, I'm not taking it on. And we had a bit of a ding-dong, which weren't first one, but we had a bit of a ding-dong, He agreed to stay on till the May, and that's why I'll take it on. But I said, I'm not packing up with Shutt yet because I'm not 60 yet. So, but he wanted to still be treasurer, so he carried on with that, and I sort of did it in name for a year, although Alan really was still pulling strings because he got praised. And then he stepped down from that, and then I took over. But I always said when I got to 60, I'd pack up coaching. I said, nobody wants to see me coach at 60. I've had my time, enjoyed it, let somebody else have a go, So I said I'd do it for 5 years. This is my 6th. So yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Even Budgie thinks that's the joke.
Yeah. Aye. It's enjoyable. As I say, I've always enjoyed that side. It's a challenge, the different challenges. You have the challenges while you're coaching, the different challenges. I mean, we didn't expect COVID or any of that coming in. I mean, what you do, and we are doing and have done, you surround yourself with good people, and that makes your job easier. We inherited a bit of a 30-year mindset, whereas we can't, we don't, we never have. Got away from that now, and if it wants doing, we try to do it. But you've got to constrain financially, but we do what we do. I mean, my initial, I said if we can be, in 5 years, if we can get promotion and sustainability, brilliant. And I'll step down and let somebody better take it to the next level. If we don't, I'll step down and let somebody have a go. We nearly did it, but hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully we're doing it, We'll keep trying. But we've got good people come on now. You've got, younger people, your Daves and your Lauras, yourself coming with media. Roger does a great job with vice chairman. And we all muck in together, don't we? So I remember Sean Andysites saying to me when I first come up, first game up there, he went, Mr. Chairman. I went, oh, we're not into that. I said, I'm not here for ego. I said, I'm here, we're working together. If we want to take it somewhere, we've got to work together. I said, me without players and players without physios and committee, and people working behind the scenes, and such as Alan Wilson doing bloody work, maintenance work, and your Mick going ground, and Rhodesy doing ground, and Bill Fields End, Alan Fields End. We've all got to be in it together if we're going to move forward. I'm a big believer in that. We're like that at work. I had a mechanic at work, didn't tell him how to mechanic because I know bugger all about mechanicking. He knew what we needed to make the thing operate, and it works. I had good drivers at work. If you surround yourself with good people, then hopefully you can take it forward.
So would you say that you're very happy with your 6 years?
Yeah. Frustrating at times. I mean, I have a couple hats on really, because I look at it from Ian's point of view and what a manager needs, but I've got to look at it from a chairman's point of view and what we can provide without killing the club. And it's a hell of a job trying to keep the balls in the air, because it's well publicised, that our income streams are limited. We're very limited. So we've got to try and keep the balls in the air, try our best with Ian. I mean, I was lucky when I took over when Chris was here, because first job we had to do was reduce his budget, and he took it on the chin and he made it work and he made it fit. And prior to COVID coming, we were 6th in the division and he made it work. And Ian's come in, he knows the club. I mean, obviously Ian and Ringy played for Bert and myself when we were here, so they know what the club's about, and they've taken it, and and they're trying to make it work. And I said to you, since we nearly made it happen. We didn't expect, when I said about 5 years, we didn't expect losing 18 months to COVID and all that brought and all the problems. And I think, you go back, as I say, I go back to when me and Bert were doing it. They split the division that year. We sort of finished about 12th, I think it was, or 15th, something like that. And the top 12, they rejigged it all. So your Chorleys, your Guisleys, there were some big sides in there. Ratcliffe, they all went up a division and they rejigged it all around. There were some good sides, but there were good crowds as well. Your Chesters, your Manchesters, they were bringing, and it makes a massive difference to your income. And obviously, on the back of, when I first joined up there in '97, they'd just sold Lee Mills for 40 odd grand. And then they were, fortunate with the other one, Simon Marples, all that. So they got added income coming in. And they got the backing of the Steelworks at the time, full-time groundsman. Anything that broke, just get in touch with Steelworks and it got mended. We haven't got that luxury now. It's all down to us, really. Everything, since COVID, all the costs have more or less doubled. So it has been a challenge. As I say, it's a different challenge, but it's enjoyable. It's a challenge that we're doing. Some days it's not enjoyable. I wake up and think, what the bloody hell am I doing? But I suppose everybody does that in a job, don't they? So.
Absolutely. So we're coming towards the end now, but we do have this little feature that we're hoping to do that the budgie seems to agree with. That's going to be my nightmare editing this. So this last feature is called Free People. So I'm going to mention 3 different people who we've all talked about already today, and it's your opportunity to say something about. So the first one is Alan Bethel.
Without Alan Bethel, there's no Stocksbridge. He had that vision to create it with the juniors, started it off in '86 and built it. Without him, there wouldn't be a Stocksbridge. And I say we've had some battles. Alan's Alan, everybody knows Alan, and he's fiery. But Alan was fiery because he'd defend the club up to the hill and he wanted the best for the club. I remember one day when there was a lad called Mark Todd used to play for first team, ex-Sheffield United, ex-Man United, Irish lad. Middle at Park, great player. At the time, Alan used to stand at the front of the stand leaning on that corrugated sheeting. And he's shouting abuse at Toddy one day, and Toddy just passed ball to somebody else and turned around and they're having a right ding-dong, what game's going off around it. Yeah, he didn't hold back Alan, but yeah, fantastic, as I say. Without Alan, there's no club. And he got the vision to get across the road done as well with the pitches, to battle out for that. But for all we've had battles, I respect him up to the hill because he's done a great job up there.
So the next one is another one we've talked about, Steve Shutt.
Shutt, yeah. Oh, fantastic for the club. Great servant for the club. Great player. Led the side to all, not necessarily captain, but led on the pitch to all the successful years. Only was lucky because he had a group of players that were a good age that came through with him and came through from North East counties into the Northern Prem. And he was lucky because a lot of them were local. Swall played middle at the park. And Swall's one of these people that, he never said much. When I said about the 3 of us being in the changing rooms, if he didn't say anything, I did. But if he said something, he was absolutely spot on. Brilliant. Didn't rant and rave. He was absolutely bang on. And that's how he played. He was a tidy player, good player. Shutty led in there. Tattle, he could pass, took the reserves on like a duck to water, because he gets it, because he's been there, he promotes good habits, and that's what you want. And like I say, I was determined that. I was surprised when Stocksbridge let Trevor Jones walk away, because Trevor was a good player for first team, and I always thought with the young lads I had, when I'd moved up, he could have got, well, before I got to the reserves, I always thought he could have been a good reserve manager, because he could have played and developed those young lads, some of those young lads I had. But he left. I was determined that Shutty weren't going to leave like that, because I knew how valuable he'd be for that club, and he stayed there. How many years were he here? We packed up 4 years since. And he always said if I finished he would. I was disappointed, but we've probably done enough, to be fair. But yeah, great servant for the club, got it, could play, could manage, superb. And had some great times with him, yeah.
Finally, Wayne Biggins.
Wayne Biggins, oh, what a character. Again, we're still playing. He was playing, not necessarily when I first got up there, obviously, because he was still playing pro. But then when he came in and played, and then he was dual manager with Mick, and then when we took over, he still had to be on the bench or playing as part of the budget. But he was 41, he was 41 at the time. So he'd play first half or come on for the last half an hour. Probably be the best player on the park. Probably be the first one up in bar. He used to go, order 2 pints, drink first one while they were pouring second one, and then it was game on. Yeah. We've had some good times up there, to be fair. Different days then. But again, just the quality he brought to it, but the humour he brought to it, the atmosphere he brought to the changing rooms. Brilliant. I remember him one day where I was doing the rubs. We had a player called Gary Middleton, who was a superb player for us. I think he was the only player on contract when we were managing, and he never missed a game, Gary. Centre half, tough as old boots. I used to have to rub him with bloody Tiger Balm before every game. But so Bert's getting ready to get ready, and he's just dancing about. And I'm thinking, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he's got to do a team talk here. But that's what he brought that character to the changing room. But he got it, and he knew everybody in the world. We played Man City pre-season one year because he was a big mate of Paul Power that played together at City. And they brought Schmeichel, Wright Phillips, that calibre of youth. And we were doing great. It was a red hot day, absolutely steaming red hot. And we were doing great. I think we were 2-1 down with about half an hour to go, 20 minutes to go. And they put their subs on. And then we never saw it ball then. They passed it for fun. But he knew everybody. He knew everybody in the world, and that was because he'd been there and done it. 150 league goals. But, fantastic character. And I say, they can't take that. For me, what I've done, and I say, when you first start coaching, you want to do it pro, I won't change anything. I won't change anything what's happened going through. It's been fantastic. It still is, still meeting people, still meet great people. And like you say, I go in most places and there's always somebody but that's because I'm getting older.
So I don't think there is a better sentiment to end on than that. So thank you very much for joining us for the very first episode of Steels Talk. You've been brilliant, Graham. Thank you very much. And Sky says the same. Right, thank you. Graham Furness. Well, that was absolutely brilliant, and thank you to Graham Furness for spending his time with us and sharing so many fantastic stories. We're not sure what you've been listening to us on, but whatever it is, please subscribe, like, follow, or whatever it is that makes sure you can listen to our next episode as soon as it comes out. I've been your host, Adam Allcroft, and I look forward to bringing you another episode of Steels.